It is 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I sat down in an empty meeting. It was time for my routine fortnightly one-on-one catch-up with my manager. Hello, mate. It's good to see you again. How are you? Yeah. I'm good, thanks. How about yourself? And I thought I'd pull that off without a hitch. This was basically the textbook answer. Nobody truly tells another how you actually are, you know? You don't want to be that guy. Like, when you're working in a shoe store, which I have, and you greet a customer and you say, "Hey, how you doing?" And the customer starts talking about his actual day. I'm not really asking how your day is. Are you just gonna buy the shoe or not? Anyways, near the end of our meeting, which was fairly typical, my manager threw a curveball and asked, "I think for our next topic, we should discuss stress management. Is that okay?" And till this day, I still think about that. Because at work, I usually put on a face, that Asian poker face when you're pretending everything is good and well. And it works 99% of the time. It would have been 100% until that day. So I thought to myself, am I slipping? Have I missed the mark? How can he tell? How does he know? Because the reality is, I have been stressed, riddled with anxiety and fear. But that's pretty much a given because I'm in a very transitory phase of my life where a lot of things are in motion, things are changing. And that is happening on top of all this routine crap that I set for myself. So, like any cultured man, I've discussed this with my friends and some of my close work colleagues. And coincidentally, I've also started to read this book, The Consolations of Philosophy by Elaine de Botton. And lo and behold, the second chapter is all about dealing with anger, frustration, and anxiety. God, is that you? Can you let me win Lotto next time instead? So today, I'm going to talk to you guys about this philosopher's perspective about stress, anxiety, and fear. And maybe it can help you get a different perspective on dealing with these emotions. The philosopher hails from Rome. Yes, insert your guys only think about one thing and it's disgusting meme here. This is true. I think about Rome every day, but it's mainly because I'm reading this book. And his name is none other than Seneca. I'll give you a quick TLDR of his life for just a bit of context. And basically, he was a very wealthy politician in Rome who later got framed by no fault of his own. He lost all his status and possessions and they put him in exile. Later on, he got unexiled, only to find a Praetorian guard knocking on his door who instructed him to neck himself by the order of his emperor Nero. And he used to teach Nero, by the way, so his student is killing the teacher. And he did neck himself. And there was no, let me go to the toilet first and bolted out the window or anything like that. He accepted his fate. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and I encourage you to look into his life if you get a chance. But for the sake of our video, we will just unpack this part. Seneca has devised a mindset which allowed him to deal with the unjust and unprovoked tragedies, including controlling the emotional roller coaster he would have gone through. So let's talk about his teachings. Remember when we were taught that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. And you see instances where this is true, but you also see examples where it absolutely doesn't. Oh, the injustice and the rage when good things happen to bad people. They keep getting away with it. Doesn't it seem like we are living in their world? Like we are some kind of like Skyrim NPC and they are the main character? And vice versa. We see good people get shit on by bad people. Doesn't that make you feel angry? Maybe even a bit scared with a hint of anxiety because it can happen to you too. Like, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a good person. How can something bad happen to me? And here's the cold hard truth. Shit happens. Like, all the time. We are experiencing these negative feelings because we expect this norm, but we rarely prepare our mind for the worst. It's like when the odds are 80-20 in your favor, but the outcome still lands at the 20. And when this does happen, we can definitely become frustrated and bitter. Like, we can also inhale some copium and conclude that, oh, it's out to get us. But the chances are you weren't even in the equation. It's not the pencil fell off from the table in order to annoy me. It's more like the pencil fell off the table and now I'm annoyed. There are things in life that happens regardless of your intention, action, or preparation. Some call this fate and some call this reality. Seneca's philosophy teaches us to prepare for the softest landing possible on the adamantium wall of reality. We can't change the outcome, but we can choose to define how we accept it. Seneca used imagery and metaphors to shit that happens in reality that cannot be explained or be seen. He talks a lot of shit and blames his misfortunes and fortunes to Fortuna, the goddess of chance. And I quote, "Never did I trust Fortuna, even when she seemed to be offering peace. All these blessings which she kindly bestowed upon me, money, public office, and influence, I relegated to a place from which she could take them back without disturbing me. Between them and me, I kept a wide gap, so she merely taken them, not torn them from me. No amount of logic can swing the actions of Fortuna as she passes on her sentence regardless." Seneca says to constantly remember the image of Fortuna, to keep our exposure to a range of threats to our security. And this security is usually, the expected norm. Seneca practiced premeditatio, a meditation in advance on all the sorrows of mind and body, which the goddess may subsequently subject us. And once we do that, he says, "I assure you, you will understand that a man's peace of mind does not depend on Fortuna." The author uses a metaphor, a dog on a leash that is tied to a moving carriage. The dog is pulled when the carriage moves. Initially, the dog is frightened, scared, and anxious, maybe even angry. He protests and fights back against the moving carriage, only to be tugged and dragged by the leash in pain. But after 15 minutes or so, the dog starts to move with the carriage, and the leash doesn't hurt as much. And as the dog walks with the carriage, he sniffs, he eats, he observes his surroundings. His tail starts to wag. This is basically our situation in a nutshell. The only difference between the dog and us is that we have the ability to judge where something is actually the carriage, and we can reconcile ourselves enabling us to wag our tails quicker and a bit more deliberate. So, in summary, misfortune exists, diseases exist, robbery exists, and death certainly exists. Seneca is not saying not to do anything about them. You should still do what's within your control, but also expect the worst. And when the worst does happen, accept that as the reality. Yes, console your emotions, but you're somewhat prepared it. Don't blame it on yourself and think about, oh, what if I've done this? Or, oh, only if this happened, blah, blah, blah. Instead of that, you can blame this unreasonable, unfortunate, and unexplainable reality to Fortuna. She gives away and she takes it away, but it's not torn away. So practice what you do when Fortuna does take it away. Like Seneca, he would regularly drink thin soup despite his wealth, because he knew it is potentially a mere minutes away from being taken by the heartless goddess. When Seneca was unexiled back to Rome, he asked Emperor Nero to quit politics 3 times, but he was refused 3 times. He knew politics meant a potential target on his back, but when he realized that he couldn't, and instead of fearing or running away, he wrote books, he enjoyed nature, and he lived his life until he met his expected but not so expected knock on the door during that fateful night which he was prepared for. His life is taken, not torn. To end with a nice quote from this book, we must reconcile ourselves to the necessary imperfectibility of existence. We will cease to be angry once we cease to be so hopeful. And that's everything for today, for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a bit of a long one. Catch you on the next one. See ya.